Welcome to the 32nd installment of my reading of S. Morgenstern's classic, The Princess Bride. Chapter 7, The Wedding. Inigo allowed Fezzik to open the door, not because he wished to hide behind the giant's strength, but rather because the giant's strength was crucial to their entering. Someone would have to force the thick door from its hinges, and that was right up Fezzik's alley.
"It's open,"
Fezzik said, simply turning the knob and peering inside.
"Open?"
Inigo hesitated. "Close it then. There must be something wrong. Why would something as valuable as the prince's private zoo be left unlocked?"
"It smells of animals, something awful in there," Fezzik said. "Did I get a whiff?"
"Let me think," Inigo said. "I'll figure it out." And he tried to do his best, but it made no sense. You didn't leave diamonds lying around on the breakfast table, and you kept the Zoo of Death shut and bolted. So there had to be a reason. It was just a matter of exercising your brain power, and the answer would be there. The answer to why the door happened to be unlocked was really this. It was always unlocked. And the reason for that was really this: safety. No one who had entered via the front door had ever survived to exit again. The idea basically belonged to Count Rugen, who helped the prince architect the place. The prince selected the location, the farthest corner of the castle grounds, away from everything, so the roars wouldn't bother the servants. But the count designed the entrance. The real entrance was by a giant tree, where a root lifted and revealed a staircase, and down you went until you arrived at the 5th level. The false entrance, called the real entrance, took you down the levels the ordinary way. First to second, second to third, or actually, second to death. "Yes," Inigo said finally.
"Oh, you figured it out?"
"The reason the door was unlocked is simply this. The albino would have locked it. He would never have been so stupid as not to. But, Fezzik, my friend, we got to him before he got to it. Clearly, once he was done with his wheelbarrowing, he would have begun locking and bolting. It's quite all right. You can stop worrying. Let's go."
"I just feel so safe with you,"
Fezzik said, and he pulled the door open a second time. As he did it, he noticed that not only was the door unlocked, it didn't even have a place for a lock. And he wondered, should he mention that to Inigo? But decided against it, because Inigo would have to wait and figure some more, and they had done enough of that already. Because although he had felt safe with Inigo, in truth, he was very frightened. He had heard odd things about this place, and lions didn't bother him, and who cared about gorillas? They were nothing. It was the creepers that made him squeamish, and the slitherers, and the stingers, and the everything. Fezzik decided to be truthful and honest. Spiders and snakes and bugs and bats and you name it, he just wasn't fond of any of them.
"Still smells of animals,"
he said, and he held the door open for Inigo. And together, stride for stride, they entered the Zoo of Death, the great door shutting silently behind them. "Quite a bizarre place," Inigo said, moving past several large cages in which were cheetahs and hummingbirds and other swift things. At the end of the hall was another door with a sign above it saying, "To Level 2." They opened that door and saw a flight of stairs leading very steeply down. "Careful," Inigo said. "Stay close to me and watch your balance." They started down toward the 2nd level.
"If I tell you something, will you promise not to laugh at me or mock me or be mean to me?"
Fezzik asked. "My word," Inigo nodded.
"I'm just scared to pieces,"
Fezzik said. "Be sure it ceases," Inigo said right back.
"Oh, that's a wonderful rhyme."
"Some other time," Inigo said, making another, feeling quite bright about the whole thing, sensing the pleasure in having Fezzik visibly relax as they descended. So he smiled and clapped Fezzik on his great shoulder for the good fellow he was. But deep, deep inside, Inigo's stomach was knotting. He was absolutely appalled and astonished that a man of unlimited strength and power would be scared to pieces. Until Fezzik spoke, Inigo was positive that he was the only one who was genuinely scared to pieces, and the fact that they both were did not bode well in panic time. Someone would have to keep his wits, and he assumed automatically that since Fezzik had so few, he would find retaining them all not that difficult. No good, Inigo realized. Well, he would simply have to do his best to avoid panic situations, and that was that. The staircase was straight and very long, but eventually they reached the end of it. Another door. Fezzik gave it a push. It opened. Another corridor lined with cages, big ones though, and inside, great baying hippos and a 20-foot alligator thrashing angrily in shallow water. "We must hurry," Inigo said, picking up the pace. "Much as we might like the dawdle." And he half ran toward a sign that said, "To level 3." Inigo opened the door and looked down, and Fezzik peered over his shoulder. Inigo said. This staircase was different. It was not nearly as steep, and it curved halfway, so that whatever was near the bottom of it was quite out of sight as they stood at the top preparing to go down. There were strange candles burning high on the walls, out of reach. The shadows they made were very long and very thin. "Well, I am certainly glad I wasn't brought up here," Inigo said, trying for a joke. "Fear," Fezzik said, the rhyme coming out before he could stop it. Inigo exploded. "Really, if you can't maintain control, I'm going to send you right back up and you can just wait there all by yourself." "Don't leave me, Inigo. I mean, don't make me leave you. Please, I mean to say beer. I didn't know how the F got in there." "I'm really losing patience with you. Come along," Inigo said, and he started down the curving stairs. Fezzik following, and as the door closed behind them, two things happened. Number one, the door quite clearly locked. Number two, out went the candles on the high walls. "Don't be frightened!" Inigo screamed. I'm not, Fezzik screamed right back. And then, above his heartbeat, he managed, "What are we gonna do?" "Simple," said Inigo after a while. "Are you frightened too?" asked Fezzik in the darkness. "Not remotely," Inigo said with great care. "And before, I meant to say easy. I don't know how that S got in there. Look, we can't go back, and we certainly don't want to stay here, so we must keep going as we were before these little things happened. Down. Down is our direction, Fezzik, but I can't tell you that, it's going to be easy, and I can tell you're a bit edgy about all this, so out of the goodness of my heart, I will let you walk down not behind me and not in front of me, but right next to me, on the same step, stride for stride, and you put an arm around my shoulder, because that will probably make you feel better, and I, so as not to make you feel foolish, will put an arm around your shoulder, and thus, safe, protected, together, we will descend." "Will you draw your sword with your free hand?" "I already have. Will you make a fist with yours?" "It's clenched." "Then let's look on the bright side. We're having an adventure, Fezzik, and most people live and die without being as lucky as we are." They moved down one step, then another, then two, then three, as they got the hang of it. "Why do you think they locked the door behind us?" Fezzik asked as they moved. "To add spice to our trip, I suspect," replied Inigo. Let me back that up. "Why do you think they locked the door behind us?" Fezzik asked as they moved. "To add spice to our trip, I suspect," replied Inigo. It was certainly one of those weaker answers, but the best he could come up with. "Here's where the turn starts," said Fezzik, and they slowed, making the sharp turn without stumbling, continuing on down. "And they took away the candles for the same reason? Spice?" "Most likely. Don't squeeze me quite so hard." "Don't you squeeze me quite so hard." By then, they knew they were in for it. There had been, for many years, a running battle among jungle zoologists just as to which of the giant snakes is the biggest. The anaconda men are forever trumpeting their Orinoco specimen that weighed well over 500 pounds, while the Python people never failed to reply by pointing out that the African rock found outside Zambezi measured 34 feet, 7 inches. The argument, of course, is silly because biggest is a vague word, having no value whatever in arguments, if one is serious about this. But any serious snake enthusiast would admit, whatever his schooling, that the Arabian Garstini, though shorter than the python and lighter than the anaconda, was quicker and more ravenous than either. And this specimen of Prince Humperdinck's was not only remarkable for its speed and agility, but it was also kept in a permanent state, just verging on the outskirts of starvation. So the first coil came like lightning as it dropped from above them and pinioned their hands so fast that fist and sword were useless, and the second coil imprisoned their arms, and "Do something!" Inigo cried.
I can't. I'm caught. You do something.
Fight it, Fezzik.
It's too strong for me.
Nothing is too strong for you. The third coil was done now, around the upper shoulders, and the fourth coil, the final coil. It involved the throat, and Inigo whispered in terror because he could hear the beast's breathing now. He could actually feel its breath. Fight it. I'm... Fezzik trembled with fear and whispered,
Forgive me, Inigo.
Oh, Fezzik.
What?
I had such rhymes for you.
What rhymes?
Silence. The fourth coil was finished.
Inigo, what rhymes?
Silence. Snake breath.
Inigo, I want to know the rhymes before I die. Inigo, I really want to know. Inigo, tell me the rhymes,
Fezzik said, and by now he was very frustrated, and more than that, he was spectacularly angry. And one arm came clear of one coil, and that made it a bit of a less of a chore to fight free of the second coil, and that meant that he could take out his arm and bring it to the aid of his other arm, and now he was yelling it out.
You're not going anywhere until I know those rhymes.
And the sound of his own voice was really very impressive, deep and resonant. And who was the snake anyway, getting the path of Fezzik when there were rhymes to learn? And by this time there were not only arms free of the bottom three coils, but he was furious at the interruption, and his hands grabbed toward the snake breath. And he didn't know if snakes had necks or not, but whatever it was that you call that part that was under its mouth, that was the part he had between his great hands, and he gave it a smash against the wall. And the snake hissed and spit, but the fourth coil was looser. So Fezzik smashed it again, and a third time, and then he brought his hands back for a bit of leverage, and he began to whip the beast against the walls like a native washerwoman beating a skirt against rocks. And when the snake was dead, Inigo said, Actually, Fezzik, I had no specific rhymes in mind. I just had to do something to get you into action. Fezzik was panting terribly from his labors.
You lied to me, is what you're saying? My only friend in all my life turns out to be a liar?
He started tromping down the stairs, Inigo stumbling after him. Fezzik reached the door at the bottom and threw it open and slammed it, with Inigo just managing to slip inside before the door crashed shut. It locked immediately. At the end of the corridor, the "to level 4" sign was clearly visible, and Fezzik hurried toward it. Inigo pursued him, hurrying past the poisoners, the spitting cobras, the gaboon vipers, and, perhaps most quickly lethal of all, the lovely tropical stonefish from the ocean outside India. I apologize, Inigo said. One lie in all these years. That's not such a terrible average when you consider it saved their lives.
There is such thing as principle,
was all Fezzik would answer, and he opened the door that led to the fourth level.
My father made me promise never to lie, and not once in my life have I ever been tempted.
And he started down the stairs. Stop, Inigo said. At least examine where we're going. It was a straight staircase, but completely dark. The opening at the far end was invisible.
It can't be as bad as where we've been,
Fezzik snapped, and down he went. In a way, he was right. For Inigo, bats were never the ultimate nightmare. Oh, he was afraid of them like everyone else, but he would run and scream if they came near. In his mind, though, hell was not bat-infested. But Fezzik was a Turkish boy, and people claim the fruit bat from Indonesia is the biggest in the world. Well, try telling that to a Turk sometime. Try telling that to anyone who has ever heard his mother scream, "Here come the king bats!" followed by the poisonous fluttering of wings. Thanks for reading with me tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.